mentioning Tom Thornton is leaving. Should I wait till the end?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces, so I'm going to be brief on introduction. We're going to run this the same as we did the school, the same as we've done every other town meeting for the past 30-plus years that I've been doing this. Okay, got it. Take notes. We're going to proceed through the warrant. I will take a motion and a second for each of these articles. And once we've got that established, we will give the person who made the motion the first shot at talking to it. Once the discussion by that person is complete, anyone else can get up here at the mic. You want to form a line if there's a lot of you, that's perfectly all right. And we'll go through you one at a time, and you're welcome to address the article that's on the warrant. We're not discussing other things relative to the town. If you are so moved to make an amendment, I need it in writing. If you would put it in writing, give it to Brian here so that I have it. We'll take the amendment, we will second it, discuss it. That we will vote on as to whether or not you want to change the article based on that amendment. If you don't, then we proceed on and the article will go onto the ballot as printed. If it's amended, we will continue to discuss it until we're through discussing, and it'll go onto the article as amended. So I'm going to ask, first of all, if, Finley, I'll put you on the spot. Would you introduce the people here on the stage?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm going to start, I'm Finley Rothaus. I'm going to start over to my right. We have at the end is Matt Upton, he's the town attorney. We have Town Manager Eileen Cabinell to his left. We have Tom Thornton, Councilor Tom Thornton, Councilor Nancy Harrington, and down on my far left is Councilor Bill Boyd, Pete Albert, Councilor Barbara Healy, Councilor Tom Koenig. Behind me, we have Finance Manager Paul McCallie on the right, and Town Clerk Tax Collector Diane Trippett on my left.
Thank you very much. I have one announcement I want to make, because if I don't do it now, I'll forget it. The MYA will be doing a fundraiser celebrating 50 years of volunteers on May 18th, 6 through 9 at the Beer Garden. Cost is $30. Everybody make note. There are tickets available. Finley, Tom Thornton, Laurie Rothaus all have tickets, or you can talk to them. But 50 years is a long time of volunteering. I think it's worth celebrating. So May 18th, 6 to 9 at the Beer Garden. Seeing nothing else, we are going to move to Article 2. If you've got a blue book, it starts on page 3. Shall a town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $13,100,000 gross budget for the wastewater treatment upgrades to the Sauhegan, Thorntons Ferry pump stations, as well as the main pump station and miscellaneous upgrades to the main plant, to include installation and to authorize the issues of not more than $13,100,000 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provision of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to authorize the town council to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon, and to further authorize the town council to apply for, obtain, and accept any federal, state, or other aid, grants, or other funds that may be made available in conjunction with said purpose, that may reduce the amount to be financed with bonds and notes, and to participate in the State Revolving Fund, SRF, RSA 486:14, established for this purpose, and to allow the town council to take any other action or to pass any other vote relative thereto. Nancy, you're moving that article?
I'd like to move Article 2 as presented.
And a second by Bill. Thank you. Nancy, give your first shot.
Okay, fortunately, I don't have to discuss this because we have a short presentation that's going to be completed by Kyle Fox, who's the Director of Public Works, and Sarita Croce, the Assistant Director of Public Works, Wastewater Division. And just to let you know, they've been going on field trips to different, they went to the Rotary and various things, and they do a spiel, which is really interesting.
You guys are going to want to move because you're not going to want to get hit on the head.
You're going to be using the, okay,
Yeah.
sweet.
Thank you, Councilor Harrington and Madam Moderator, for giving Kyle and I an opportunity to present this upgrade, proposed upgrade, to everyone today. Before I get into the upgrade, I would like to give a brief overview of the operations at the wastewater treatment plant, then discuss the goals of the project, the scope of the project, and then I will transfer the presentation to Kyle, who will discuss the project cost as well as funding. Wastewater, when it enters the treatment plant, goes through preliminary treatment. So it enters at the main pump station, which Kyle is focusing on right now, and it removes debris such as flushable wipes, sticks, and other floatable objects that are in there. Following preliminary treatment, it goes to primary treatment, and what we're looking at right now are 3 primary clarifiers, which remove sand and particles there. So about 50% of the particles that are in the wastewater will be removed in primary clarification. The solids from primary clarification will go to a sludge holding tank, but the water will continue in the process and it will go to secondary treatment. Now, in secondary treatment, what we have is we have little microorganisms there, and these microorganisms will eat up the organics and actually remove the organics as well as some nutrients from the wastewater. The solids from the secondary treatment will go to a sludge holding tank, and then the water will continue on after secondary clarification to disinfection. So in disinfection, what we do is we add hypochlorite or chlorine to the wastewater to kill the bacteria and diseases that are in the wastewater. So concurrently with treating the water itself, we remove solids from the wastewater. As I had talked about, it's in primary clarification and advanced or secondary clarification. These solids go to what we call a biosolids handling facility. At that facility, we remove the water as well as mix the solids with sawdust to create something called compost. And at Merrimack, we actually generate what's called a Class A compost or a biosolid. So we have several goals with this project. The primary goal being to address issues associated with equipment that is original to the facility. The facility came online on May 5th, 1970, and is now 49 years old. The second is to address issues with those large objects that come in the primary or into our main pump station. So Goal 1 is to replace the original equipment at the facility. Goal 2 is to address safety concerns, primarily associated with the original equipment. We'd also like to address code-related deficiencies, such as the American with Disabilities Act and electrical code compliance. And then the last is to address issues with these large objects that are coming into the wastewater treatment plant. It's quite interesting that if you look at wastewater today versus what it was 40 years ago, it's very different. And some of the differences are associated with something called flushable wipes, which is one of the largest problems that we have. So to address the issue with flushable wipes, what we're planning to do, or what we would like to do, is construct a new influence screenings building. And this building will remove those larger objects or larger debris. To illustrate the issue, what we'd like to do is have a presentation for you today. What Kyle has is he has 2 mason jars. Both of them have already been filled with water. Kyle's going to place a couple of squares of toilet paper in one of the jars, and he's going to place 1 flushable wipe in the other jar.
Sure.
Thank you for being a shaker. So what we'll do now is the jars are going to be shaken to mimic the action of flushing the toilet and moving through the pipes. And they're doing an excellent job, shaking a lot. So what you'll be able to see, and Kyle is planning to pass this around, is that the jar with toilet paper has completely disintegrated, while the jar with the flushable wipe is still intact. And Kyle and I actually did this presentation several times, as Councilor Harrington mentioned, and we left the jars on our table in the office, and the flushable wipe over a 1-week period had not disintegrated at all. Now I'd like to go back to the main pump station. So following treatment or the removal of the wipes and other large debris, we come to the main pump station, which removes other materials as well. The pump station has not been upgraded since May 15th, 1970, so we're planning to have a comprehensive upgrade of all of the components. One of the aspects of the pump station is to replace our 2 large pumps with 4 pumps. The 2 large pumps, there will be 2 larger pumps and 2 what we call jockey pumps. And the jockey pumps will actually pump the wastewater during the evening and the night periods when the wastewater flow is lower. And we're anticipating an estimated savings of about $10,000 a year. So we talked about the primary and secondary clarifiers, and that is where we remove the solids from the water. The primary clarifiers, we have 3 of them. One of them still has the original mechanisms associated with it. And the secondary clarifiers, all 3 of them have the original mechanisms associated with them as well. So we're proposing as part of the project to replace all the mechanisms for these clarifiers, as well as in the secondary clarifiers install an algae removal system. So the algae removal system is designed to remove the algae, and that will help minimize the need for hypochlorite in the effluent. Something that is a concern of mine are our sludge holding tanks. Now, these tanks are 17 feet deep, and our operators actually have to go inside the sludge holding tanks to physically shovel out the material that's at the bottom of the tanks to clean the tanks. There are toxic gases in the sludge holding tanks, like hydrogen sulfide gas. So how we're planning to address this issue is we're planning to lower the tanks by 4 feet and also reconfigure the tops of the tanks so that we can use a vacuum truck to physically vacuum out the material at the bottom, thereby limiting the need for a confined space entry. The headworks building have multiple components associated with it. If you look at the top right-hand side of the slide, what you see are 2 emergency generators. Again, these are original to the facility. We are proposing to replace these 2 generators with a new emergency generator. It is required by law that the operations at the wastewater treatment plant continue in the event of power failure, so this is something that is essential to the operation. On the bottom or below the generators, you see a piping configuration, which is the piping, again, original to the facility, that pumps the sludge from the sludge holding tanks to our dewatering equipment. The last photograph that's on this slide is of the entrance to the wastewater treatment facility. And as you can see, the entrance is not ADA compliant, so we are proposing to make the entrance as well as other aspects of the facility ADA compliant. In addition to the main facility, which was brought online on May 15th, 1970, we have 2 pump stations. One is located on Railroad Avenue, which is Sohegan Pump Station. The other one is located on Griffin Street, which is Thornton's Ferry Pump Station. Now, both of these pump stations have not been upgraded since they were installed in 1970, and we're proposing, again, to complete a comprehensive upgrade of all the components. Similar to the main pump station, we're going to have pumps which can handle lower flow, so we anticipate savings of about $3,000 a year. The final major component of this project is going to be complete activities that were started as part of the Phase 2 upgrade. So what we're going to do here is we're going to replace 6 exhaust fans at the compost facilities as well as install a new amendment storage facility.
Thank you, Sarita. Now I'm going to talk about the cost and funding of the project. So in this slide, it shows all of the various components broken down by each one into its cost. And the total cost of the project is estimated to be $22.62 million. In order to make our money work the best for us, we decided to break this project into 2 bonds. So what'll be on the ballot in this April's vote is the first bond, which is for $13.1 million. That bond would cover the cost of designing the entire project, the 2 external pump stations, the main pump station, and the new screening building. Next year, we anticipate putting the second bond onto the ballot at $9.5 million, and that'll fund the rest of the project. Our goal is to advertise the project to contractors as one big project so we get cost of scale savings. The bond payment schedule for the bond that is on this year, we're proposing the first payment would be in year 2022 at $785,000. The bond would be complete in 2051. It's a 30-year bond, and we're anticipating a bond rate of 2.7%. One of the key aspects of this project that I want to get across is that it is not funded out of the property tax base. It is only funded by the users of the sewer system. To fund the project, what we will need to do is have some sewer rate increases. What we're proposing right now is, to accomplish that goal, is 4 increases over the next 8 years. So every other year, there would be an increase. The first one would be coming up this year at 12%, and then 2 more 12s and a 5% increase. The current rate for residential users is $242 per year now, so the rate for next year will go up $29 to $271. To show where we are compared to the rest of the state regarding our sewer rates, so this graph, although you can't see the individual names, what it represents is the cost for the average user for each of the 85 sewer plants in the state of New Hampshire. At the right is the most expensive one at $1,606 per year per user, and way to the left is the lowest one, which is Seabrook. 5th from the lowest is us at $242 per year. After all 4 of the proposed increases go through, again, that's over an 8-year period, our rate would be $357, which would make us the 12th lowest at that point, assuming the other 11 don't have increases in that same time frame. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the moderator.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the completeness and brevity of the presentation. We're going to adjust mics here. If you've got questions on this, please come to the mic. I'm getting everybody else seated here. And as always, identify your name and address, please.
Chuck Mower, 4 Depot Street. Is there going to be a change in the elevation of those pumping stations, or is there some impediment to actually raising the elevation? We have had some flood issues in the past.
We have an answer here, or do we need Kyle? Kyle and Sarita? Sarita?
So we're not planning to change the elevation of the pump stations. The floods from the Mother Days floods, one of the ways that we're going to address the issues are we're going to be installing dry pit submersible pumps that would allow us to pump continuously even if they're underwater. So we should be able to mitigate any issues with flooding.
Thank you. Rosemary?
Hi, Rosemary Rung, 21 Ministerial Drive. I suppose this question should go to Sarita, but I know about a month and a half ago, several state reps, including myself, provided written testimony and support for a request by the wastewater treatment plant for some state funding to defray some of this cost. And I was just wondering if that funding comes through, how will it affect the bonds?
Eileen?
Is this on? How do I turn it on? Is it on? Okay.
Yep.
Sorry. What was the question again? Sorry.
If we get state funds, how's that going to affect the bonds?
Oh, okay. So the bonds that you brought forward to the legislature related to a prior compost facility. So that particular one will help to defray the cost of that existing bond. This one, it depends on funding. It would be something in future years, depending on whether that would be funded. But the other one is very much appreciated, and anytime you can get help with a system like this, it's wonderful. Thank you.
She got it.
Any other questions?
What?
Gotcha.
Bob Preventure, 35 Ingham Road. Funding for the debt repayment is from solar user fees. With all the buildings that are being built, so-called apartments in Merrimack, does this affect them too? Do they pay their share, or how does that work?
If they use the sewer, they pay the sewer
All
fees.
these apartments, okay.
If they're on sewer, yes.
So is that taken into account the payments that are going to be made every 2 years, or since these buildings aren't built yet, I mean, but they are coming, as you can see?
Go ahead, Finley.
They will be paying the user fees, but on top of that, there are permits required in order to connect to the sewer, and they believe it's $2,000 for that connection.
Yeah, I've been
process,
there.
Which helps offset those costs.
Very good, then, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Seeing no other discussion, Article 2 will move to the ballot as printed, and it does require a 2/3 vote of those people showing up on Election Day. I have been asked on Article 3, because there's some changes to state law, which entail 4, 5, and 6, we're going to move Article 3 to after Article 6, discuss it then. So we're going to proceed with Article 4 unless there's major objection by this body of voters. Seeing none, all right. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,650,000 to be added to the following capital reserve funds previously established for the purposes for which they were created. These appropriations are not included in the total town operating budget warrant article number 3. Nancy, I believe you're making the motion.
Yes, I'd like to move Article 4 as presented.
And Tom, thank you very much. Nancy, you have the floor.
Just a couple of things about Article 4 that I'd like everyone to understand. First of all, not everyone understands that capital reserve funds are in fact savings accounts. Every year, we put a certain amount of money in the various savings accounts, and if you look on page 4, where it has a specific capital reserve fund items, every year we put money into those accounts for purchases in the future. Now, every single item has been previously approved by voters in the past. Okay, so we had to request that a capital reserve fund be established for ambulances. Okay, so this has already been approved. All of these are separate savings accounts. The reason why it's being presented this way, it's the first time that there was a change in state regulations. I think I'm going to be corrected, am I?
State law.
Okay, Kyle's coming up. I thought he was going to say, no. State law was changed that we have to now present this information as an article on the ballot. Previously, it was integrated into the budget. So if you're wondering why it's being presented as it is, it's because state law requires it from now on that these savings accounts have to be presented in this way. The only other point I want to make is Merrimack has been, I don't want to say envied, but a lot of towns do not have capital reserve funds. They bond everything. If they want to buy a fire truck for $400,000, they bond it. And whenever you bond anything, you pay interest. So this was started many years ago, very wisely started many years ago, so that we could accumulate over time, and when we need to buy that fire truck, we have the cash. And we don't have to bond it and therefore pay interest. So I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to help you understand why it is being presented and will from now on be presented this way.
Any further questions or need for clarification? Seeing none, Article 4 will move to the ballot as printed. We'll move on, I'm sorry.
If I might, I just...
Go ahead, Finley.
One other benefit of capital reserve funds, from my estimation...
Finley, make sure you're close to the mic, please.
Is that, in fact, when we have, we are able to obtain grants at times, and you have to have projects that are ready to go. And with these funds, we're able to really capitalize on that to a great degree. And so we all embrace the funding of our capital reserve funds.
Thank you,
One
my
One
apologies.
example of that were the bridges.
Yeah.
We had the money for the bridges. And when we were able to, when it came up, that state funds were available, there was an 80-20 match. We had the 20% available cash and got 80% from the state. Again, just to back you up, Finley.
All right. Article 4 to the ballot is printed. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $350,000 to be added to the Sewer Infrastructure Capital Reserve Fund, previously established, with said amount to come from sewer fees and no amount to come from taxation. Nancy again?
After this one, I'm all done. Article 5, move Article 5 as presented.
Thank you. Bill, thank you for the second. Nancy?
Okay, capital reserve funds, here's an example where we have to vote to establish a savings account, a capital reserve fund for the wastewater treatment funds. Okay, so this is the establishment, and from here on in, if it's approved, it will be saved upon year. So in the future, hopefully, if there are improvements we need to make, we don't have to bond as much.
Anyone else want to speak to Article 5? You want to speak to Article 5? Okay. Seeing none, Article 5 will move to the ballot as printed. Are we good? Article 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $47,000 for buying large diameter hose, supply hose, and computer replacement for fire truck apparatus, and to authorize the withdrawal of $47,000 from the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund created for that purpose. Bill, I'll give you a shot at this.
Madam Moderator, move Article 6 as spoken to.
Thank you. Barbara, second. Thank you. Bill?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Just very simply put, we're withdrawing funds, as she said, from the Capital Reserve Fund to pay for specific items that the fire department has asked for, specifically 2 new hoses and a computer to be replaced into one of the fire trucks.
Thank you. Anyone else comments, questions? Seeing none, Article 6 will move to the ballot as printed. And now we are going to go back to Article number 3, which is the budget. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth in the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein totaling $32,776,693. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $30,517,636, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town or by law, or the town council may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Finley?
Madam Moderator, I move Article 3 is printed and presented.
Thank you. And Tom, thank you for the second. Finley, you want to have at this one?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you for being here this evening to hear about our operating budget that we're proposing to the town. It's me presenting a budget is like me being a hypnotist. In about 2 minutes, you should be soundly sleeping in your chairs, but we'll go for it. The council is presenting to you a $32,776,000 operating budget. There's a number of different ways that we raise funds to cover this budget. Some we have, most we don't have total control over, but an understanding, and only one that we have complete control over, and that's the property tax. We're able to raise funds through auto registrations, for instance. We get state and federal grants at times that can be used for paying for our operating budget. But the only thing we do have control over is the property tax rate. And so over the years, the council's been very cognizant of that municipal property tax rate, and what we attempt to do is keep it as level as possible. When there are mad jumps in the property tax rate, it has serious impacts on people, and not least of which is folks who might be escrowing their taxes to make up that difference can become burdensome, and so we're always paying attention to that. After all these items are used to cover our budget, the amount remaining out of the $32 million, the amount remaining to be covered by property taxes is $15,665,000. What we had last year, the property tax rate for the operating budget was $4.62, and our current calculation is for this 2019-2020 budget is $4.55 for the operating budget. Some of the impacts to our budget, I'll go over a few of the bigger ones, but our health insurance costs, line item went up $94,000. Workers' compensation went up $31,000. We've had savings from last year's budget in voting booths. We held off replacing more of the voting booths. Last year we did an initial purchase of $19,000 and took out some of the real bad booths, and eventually we'll be replacing the vast majority of them. We had an increase in vehicle maintenance of $25,000. One of our bigger items is at Wasserman Park, the Natticook Lake Beach. We have a dredging project that we'd like to do, and that's $95,000. Over the years, erosion has brought in the sands and debris sediment into the swimming area, and so currently what used to be able to utilize for swimming is now kind of a swampy area. So we're hoping to get that taken care of this year. We have an increase in police cruisers of $50,000, and that's one additional cruiser and a fit-up for a total of 4 cruisers, the lighting, bars, and all the accessories associated with cruisers. We plan on doing the MYA parking lot. That's at $25,000 in the budget. The concession stand needs quite a bit of work, and that's a $17,000 increase that we included. Some of the things we also pay attention to in our budgeting is our infrastructure maintenance and so on. We, as a council, we're pretty adamant and really focusing on the impacts our road maintenance is having on our budgets, and it's an item that you can easily kick down the road and let somebody else worry about it in 4 or 5 years, but the added cost when you have to start digging into the foundation of a road is substantially more than just throwing a coat of paving on that road periodically. We have I believe it's twice a year, our Public Works Department goes out and assesses our roads. We have software that they enter grading for the different roads, primary roads, secondary roads, neighborhood roads, and it gives us a listing of this recommended repairs that should be done at what time, and it's, I think, served the town pretty well since we started utilizing that. Last year, we had an HVAC project at the east wing of Town Hall that was $197,000, so that's not in this budget. That's a decrease that came in. We've entered a membership once again with the New Hampshire Municipal Association. That's a $17,000 increase. We've had savings on our consultant side. We had a space needs assessment done last year that's not in the budget this year. We have the 4th of July increase of $10,000 and paving of our fire lots at $25,000. Some of the staffing impacts to the budget, excuse me, we have non-union pay increases of $124,000. We had a staffing adjustment at the library from a position, moving it from part-time to full-time. That's an addition of $22,000. Fire overtime has been reduced by $16,000. Police overtime was reduced by $48,000. We had a period of time where we had additional work that had to be taken care of, and it was an urgent need for our police department, and we backfilled with overtime until we got two individuals up and ready to go. So that overtime cost is down this year. We had one union with a contractual raise of $59,000. Compensated absences is down $160,000, and the retirement contribution is also down $98,000. I'm almost there. Some of the capital reserve fund purchases that we're anticipating in 2019-2020 budget would be licenses and server upgrades of $50,000 for computer equipment. We have drainage improvements at $200,000. We have a Turkey Hill Road intersection that we're going to be dealing with. That's a $300,000 item, and that's the Turkey Hill Babusick Lake Road intersection. We have the Depot Street boat ramp. We have $15,000 going into that. The boat ramp has come apart virtually completely. It's going to be a major project in the end, but we're going through some design and engineering things for the $15,000 for this year. We have a pickup truck, a couple of dump trucks. We have a loader at $250,000 for solid waste. Let me see. We have the children's room windows, and it says windows in your printout, but it's a $75,000 line, but it's not just windows. They're actually going to be closing the well that you see and on Route 3 that has windows down, they flood, and it's become a real burden. So they're actually going to be closing that off completely. Then we have wastewater, let me see. Yeah, in the sewer infrastructure, we have a bunch of costs associated with the screener, manhole, sewer line rehab. We have a sewer rate study that's going to be performed for $25,000, and let me see, I think that's about it. So what I want to talk to is the Article 4, 5, and 6 that was spoken to earlier. Those items were normally in our operating budget, and so because we can't do that now, they've been segregated out, and when you take our operating budget, it was the impact to the tax rate is $4.55. Our deposits into our capital reserve funds that was spoken to earlier by Nancy and all is 49 cents. Our union contracts, if they all pass, will be 6 cents to the property tax rate, and totaled up, it equals $5.10 per thousand, which is the same as last year. And so we kind of obtained our goal of keeping it level. Then the next thing, I don't have to deal with it. Paul McCallie will be speaking to you about the default budget. And I will, yes, if you have any questions, I'll wake you up now. You can feel free to ask any questions you might have.
Any questions on the budget as presented? And if you're wondering about the effect on the tax rate, in the blue book you have, that last page on the inside the last page gives you the numbers that Finley just read off as to what the effect of these articles are on the tax rate. So Nancy?
I'd just like to emphasize one thing that Finley didn't. You did mention about the paving. The town council this year decided to add $200,000 more because we could. So we are going to be spending $1 million this year on paving in town. Okay?
Thank you, Nancy.
And you need to emphasize again, it's the same tax rate as last year, even if all those articles pass.
Yes, sir.
That's fantastic. My name is Peter Bover, 16 Longer Road. And it's funny you mentioned that because I'm here with the personal agenda tonight on Longer Road. What I'd like to discuss real quick with the council and with our fellow Merrimack individuals is my road is in terrible shape. I would also like to start by saying Mr. Fox has been fantastic answering my questions, and their crew in Public Works does an awesome job. They do the best that they can. Unfortunately, it's not enough. By talking to Mr. Fox, he gave me the outline of kind of the proposed plan and the costs associated with it, and it seems pretty steep, which is understandable. I started this discussion on a forum on social media, to which I was met with some support and some, I want to call it anger, but saying, well, you chose to live there, so deal with it. I'm a taxpayer like everyone in this room, and I don't think that answer is good enough. I don't think the answer is good enough that it's too expensive and that the project's too big. You're saying you have $1 million for paving this year. Well, Peters Road was paved last year. I chose not to live on that road, and it was paved all the same, and I paid. You had mentioned that there is a project plan. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Finley Rothaus.
Thank you. That there is a list of the roads that would be, you've identified the problem roads. Now, there's only 16 dirt roads in Merrimack. I understand not everyone lives on a dirt road. Longer Road and the Babusick Lake area, there are paved roads. So it leads to some confusion why Longa is paved on the bottom half but not the top half. I'm sure it's a drainage issue. Shore Road is paved. It's become such a problem, it's actually a danger to turn on and off the road. It's too narrow, filled with massive potholes where if you want to turn off the road at a reasonable speed that would be normal for any driver, you cannot. Bringing my newborn daughter home, I have to have someone in the back seat to hold her head because it jostles her around that much. This is not an exaggeration, this is the truth. So I'm here tonight just to say I would really appreciate the fact that we have a capital reserve fund that is a running tally that we can tap into, that if this project is so expensive, and I find it to be important to myself personally, and others that live on the road, that we keep it in mind so that we can plan for the future. I understand this won't be done tomorrow or even next year, but put it in the minds of everyone in this room, excuse me, in the council, that we can hopefully start and get this work done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rosemary? Well, we defer to Chuck.
Madam Moderator, would you please remind me what article we're on?
We are on the budget, which is Article, I believe, 3.
Okay, thank you very much. We hear so many numbers. It's so difficult to get our arms around everything and why these large numbers don't necessarily translate into having a pothole filled in front of our house. My experience has been over time that all the potholes do get filled. Sooner or later, it seems to be the case. Generally speaking, I would really just like to try to convey to people when they come to vote that we really have an exceptionally well-run community. And all of the people up here on the stage and the dais and so forth can take credit for participating in making sure that we have a well-run community. I live on Route 3. Well, more or less, I live on Route 3. And by the way, I didn't choose to live in Merrimack. I was born here. I had no choice in the matter whatsoever. And I have seen Route 3 go from a very sleepy little road to what it presently is today. And I'm here to testify on behalf of the employees of the town of Merrimack that I see them every day. Now, lots of parts of town don't see people every day. They don't see a public works truck. They don't see a fire truck. They don't see a police car. And God bless them, they probably don't want to. I don't know that I necessarily want to, but I guarantee you there are at least 20 public safety response calls that go past my intersection every single day. I see the hard work. I see the people that are employed. I see the firemen. I see the police. I see the public works people. I see everybody out every single day making sure that this is a great community to live in. And although I'm sure that our town manager has an office door that's open to everybody, she rests in relative silence in terms of how she connects with everybody else in the community, but she's the leader. She does a good job for us all, and we all respond accordingly, I think. And so I see most of the budget being very modest. I see most of the increases being very modest and well-deserved and well undertaken. We have a community that we can be exceptionally proud of, well-run. And what more than can I possibly say? I like living in Merrimack, and I like the way people in Merrimack work for the people in Merrimack. Fire, police, public safety response, public works, everybody. It has not always been so, but it has been so now for some time, and I am grateful for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Rosemary, your turn.
Rosemary Rung, 21 Ministerial Drive. And I want to agree with the previous two speakers. Totally agree with Mr. Mower about the quality of Merrimack. And I want to thank all of you for your service and all the contributions you make for our town. And I also agree with the first speaker who spoke about the condition of the dirt roads in Merrimack. Old Blood Road is horrible. It's practically impassable. And if the town could give some attention to how we treat those roads, it would be wonderful. But actually, I wanted to come up here to ask a question about the children's windows in the library. If the windows are going to be replaced, the wells are going to be blocked off, is there a plan for where the water is going to go? Like,
Thank you, Finley.
That's part of the reason for the $75,000. There has to be a connection to the drainage system that is in Route 3. And so all of that will happen at that point. The water will be taken off and sent down through the system.
okay, so that's included, the diversion. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Anyone else with comments on Article 3, the operating budget? Seeing none, it will move to the ballot as printed. And we are going to jump ahead now to,
Default budget.
I'm sorry?
I got to do the default budget by law?
If you want to go through the, okay, we'll do the default budget right now, just a definition of the default budget, because that's part of this article.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. State law requires us to go over our default budget and how we came up with our default budget calculations. If you turn to page 17 in your handout, it gives you a summary of the default budget. We take last year's, or 2018-19 operating budget of $34,511,890. That is our starting point. We have one collective bargaining agreement still in force. That's NEBBA 12, our police union. The town voted on that. That's $70,783. Add that to the $34 million. Then we have to look at our union contract benefit increases and decreases in the next fiscal year, 1920. Health insurance, as Finley said, went up. New Hampshire retirement went down. Workers' comp in the town went up as well. So you add $76,375 for health insurance, subtract $74,600 for New Hampshire retirement, add $30,327 for workers' comp. Then state law requires one-time purchases to be removed. We have one-time capital expenditures in the 2018-19 budget of $279,600. As Finley said, that's HVAC system, That was a car that we bought for community development and a pooled car for the town hall complex. Voting booths, a hot box for asphalt, and an asphalt milling machine. Capital reserve deposits last year were $1,950,000. Because the state law changed to RSA 35.5, we now have to subtract them from the $34 million. Elections, we have one fewer election. However, the election is a big election, it's a primary. So the money is a $3,979 savings for that one election, for reducing by one election. One-time capital fund purchases from our savings account, we include them in the budget. We have to back them out because they're a one-time purchase every year. That's $1,752,311. Debt service, we had the highway bond last year. It was the first year of the bond, so costs were a little bit higher. So we back out what we paid in debt service of $1,253,954, and we add our debt service for the 1920 year of $1,142,795. Comes to a default budget balance of $30,517,636. If anybody is interested in a line item detail, it is on our website. You can come to my office in the finance department. You can come to the town manager's office, and it's also, like I said before, on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. All right, we're going to move ahead now to Article 7. Shall the town of Merrimack vote to approve the cost items included in a collective bargaining agreement reached between the Merrimack Town Council and the IAFF Local 2904, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing level, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $53,411 for the current fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. This collective bargaining agreement covers the firefighters and paramedics of the fire department.
Madam
Pete?
Moderator,
Thank you.
I move that Article 7 be submitted to the warrant article as written.
Thank you. And Bill, second. Thank you.
I'd like to speak to this. The IAFF, the International Association of Firefighters, Local 2904, their collective bargaining agreement pertains to our rank-and-file firefighters and paramedics who watch over us every day, 24 hours a day. The contract, as the moderator stated, is a 4-year contract going from July 2019 to June 2023. It's a 4-year contract, and this first year is a 2% raise, and it's 2% each year afterwards. Also dealing in this contract, in this warrant article, is a tentative agreement. It includes other small benefit and language changes specific to the needs of the group as well as the needs of the town. This contract contains language that will prevent the town from being subject to the Affordable Care Act's Cadillac tax. And this year, the 2% increase would impact our tax rate at 2 cents.
Thank you, Pete. Any further questions or comments on Article 7? Seeing none, it'll move to the ballot as printed. Article 8. Shall the town of Merrimack vote to approve the cost items included in a collective bargaining agreement reached between the Merrimack Town Council and the New England Police Benevolent Association, Local 112, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing level, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $11,184 for the current fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. This collective bargaining agreement covers the dispatchers and office staff of the police department.
Madam Moderator, I move that Article 8 be submitted to the warrant article as written.
Thank you. Tom, thank you for the second.
Madam Moderator, I'd like to speak to this article as well. This article pertains to the collective bargaining agreement affecting our police dispatchers or telecommunicators, as well as the clerk or the staff that handles the data entry, as well as requests for information and so forth. These people are integral to the operation of the police department. This contract, as agreed upon, is 1 year, this upcoming year, and it's a 2% raise. It also includes a training stipend for any dispatcher who's assigned to train a new employee. and they shall receive $1 an hour increase for the hours dedicated to training that new employee, which is a very important task. And we'll receive that again till the training time is over with and that new employee is qualified or to function. The tentative agreement also includes other small benefit language changes specific to the needs of the group, as well as, again, the needs of the town. This contract contains language that will prevent the town from being subject to the Affordable Care Act's Cadillac tax, and in the next budget year would affect the tax rate impact less than a cent.
Any further questions on Article 8? Seeing none, it will move to the ballot as printed. Moving to Article 9. Shall the town of Merrimack vote to approve the cost items included in a collective bargaining agreement reached between the Merrimack Town Council and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees 93, Local 3657, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing level, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $68,421 for the current fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. This collective bargaining agreement covers the supervisory employees of the fire and police department. Barb?
Madam Moderator, I'd like the article moved to the warrant as written.
Thank you. And Tom, thank you for the second. Barb, I'll give you a chance here.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, as the moderator stated, this is the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, 93, Local 3657, Collective Bargaining Agreement for the supervisory personnel of the police and fire departments. This is a 4-year contract, and during this period, this is what the items are that have been agreed to. Wages, initial 3% wage adjustment effective July 1st, 2019 for fire employees only, and a 2% wage increase effective July 1 in each year of the 4 years of the contract for all employees of the union. For police management training incentive, police department employees can earn an additional incentive of $416 per year if they attain certification in 2 additional FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Association Leadership Institutes. And this is Supervisor Leadership, Command Leadership, or Executive Leadership. This incentive is in addition to the current command training certification incentive for having certification in one of these leadership institutes. The prescription drug plan change, the change is to the same plan as all the other full-time employees, co-pays being $10, $20, and $45. Fire department paramedic certification incentive, increase incentive from $1,500 to $3,500 per year, and this pertains to the fire department employees only. Life insurance change, increased benefit for spouse and children from $1,000 to $10,000. The tentative agreement also includes other small benefit and language changes specific to the needs of the group as well as the town. This contract contains language that will prevent the town from being subject to any changes for the Affordable Care Act's Cadillac tax.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 9 as printed? Seeing none, it'll move to the ballot as printed. Go on to Article 10. Shall the town of Merrimack vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Merrimack Town Council and the Teamsters, Local 633, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $18,146 for the current fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. $10,120 towards the first year's payment to cover from sewer fees from the Wastewater Enterprise Fund. This collective bargaining agreement covers supervisors and clerical employees of the highway, solid waste disposal, Wastewater Treatment and Employee Maintenance Division of the Public Works Department. Tom?
Madam Moderator, I'd like to move the Article 10 as presented.
Thank you. Nancy, a second? Thank you. Tom?
Yeah. This is the collective bargaining agreement for the Teamsters and Local 633 for supervisory and clerical employees of highway, solid waste, wastewater, and equipment maintenance. Duration is a 3-year contract. Wages, 2.5% wage increase in each year. Short-term disability insurance benefits change from 70% with a cap of up to $700 per week to 60%, but remove cap. Boot allowance is an increase of allowance from $130 to $200 per year. The tentative agreement also includes other small benefit and language changes specific to the needs of the group as well as the town. This contract contains language that will prevent the town from being subject to the Affordable Care Act's Cadillac tax, and the tax increase is less than 1 cent.
Thank you, Tom. Any other discussion on Article 10? Seeing none, it'll move to the ballot as printed. Article 11, shall the town of Merrimack vote to approve the cost items included in a collective bargaining agreement reached between the Merrimack Town Council and American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees 93, Local 2986, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing level. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $51,542 for the current fiscal year. Such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. $19,309 towards the first year's payment come from sewer fees, I feel like I read this before, from the Wastewater Enterprise Fund. This collective bargaining agreement covers laborers of the Highway, Solid Waste Disposal, Wastewater Treatment, and Equipment Maintenance Division of the Public Works Department. Barb, thank you.
Madam Moderator, I'd like to move the article to the warrant as presented.
Pete, thank you. Barb?
Okay, Article 11, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, 93, Local 2986, Collective Bargaining Agreement. This is a 3-year contract for the laborers of the highway, solid waste, wastewater, and equipment maintenance. Wages are 2% wage increase effective July 1st in each year of the 3 years of the contract for all employees in the union. Differential pay will be increased from 75 cents per hour to $1 per hour. The clothing allowance is increased from $200 to $275, and effective July 1st, 2021, the allowance will be increased to $300. The tentative agreement also includes other small benefit and language changes specific to the needs of the group as well as the town. This contract contains a language that will, like the others, prevent the town from being subject to the Affordable Care Act's Cadillac tax.
Thank you. Any further discussion on, what are we on, Article 11? I know, I'm losing track here. Seeing none, we'll move Article 11 to the ballot as printed. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to appoint the town council as agents to expend from the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund previously established in 1972, Article 8. Bill?
Madam Moderator, move Article 12 to the warrant as presented.
Thank you. Nancy, the second?
Second.
Thank you.
Very simply, since the reserve fund was approved back in 1972, it lacked the authority to give the town council the appointment to expend as agents. We're asking the voters to correct the law as presented administratively that would allow the town council to expend as agents.
Thank you. Any questions on Article 12 as printed? Seeing none, it'll move to the ballot as printed. Mike, your turn. Article 13, and in fact, just give me half a minute. Matt is still out here in the lobby with his Parks and Rec information. There's a survey as well, I believe, that's there. Stop on your way out, grab any of it you can. If you have suggestions for him, please do so. All right. Shall a town vote to allow Keno games to be operated as prescribed by state law within Merrimack?
Madam Moderator, my name is Mike Kelly, 14 Pine Tree Lane, Merrimack. I move that the article be moved to the ballot as written.
Thank you. Mike, do you have a second? Thank you. Go ahead, Mike, you want to speak to it?
Just speak for a moment. I just think that, you know, this is the way our country works, that people should be able to vote. There are some people that have strong feelings for, some people strong feelings against. I think the town should have the opportunity to vote and pass it yea or nay.
Any further discussion on Article 13? Boy, you guys made it easy on me tonight. Seeing none, it'll move to the ballot as printed. I would like to defer to Finley.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. First, I just would like to quickly thank Town Manager Cabanel, our staff, and all the unions for stepping to the plate during the contract negotiations. Those times can sometimes be difficult, but I think all in all it worked very well in the town, the council, and I believe the town will truly appreciate what had happened, and we thank you. And the other thing is I'd like to recognize Tom Thornton is leaving us after 2 years, and we're disappointed about that, but he's got a busy life going on with a young family and work and everything else. So we just want to thank you. That's it, and he's not new to volunteering. He's been working with the NYA for years, and we appreciate all that you brought to us, Tom. Thank you.
Now I have to break at a new table, mate.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Stan isn't here. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Rosemary, thank you. Second, thank you. Laurie. Don't forget to vote in April, because none of this becomes unless you get out there and vote yes. Unless you don't want it, vote no. Stop and see Matt, please. Give him a hand. He's got some great information.